So I think the talent side is one of the most important aspects of DEI. It's really a piece of passion for me. But James, there are other interesting ways in which DEI really comes up, and you've done a lot of work, on the revenue and and financial risk management side. Keying off of ISO 30415. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because there's this is about feel good, but it's also about dollars and cents.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of money in D&I, right? So per the standard, again, I think if normally you go to any company, you ask 10 people, what does D&I mean? And they'll usually give you 10 different answers about HR. But the standard, it sort of solves that problem that where CFOs are not able to define D&I or what they would have their, D&I roles perform or how they even measure them. And so what the standard really looks at is internal corporate policy. So it looks at intentionality across corporate governance. That's things we do with executives. HR is obviously there, things we do with our employees, but also product delivery, whether our product is a service or something more tangible. And last but not least, or probably most important, is our supplier diversity or procurement at most companies. And what the standard insists in the supplier diversity rung is that larger companies, larger OEMs push downstream to their supply chains their D&I principles. Because what you hear from a lot of mid-market companies, right, is, well, we don't have the sophistication to do this or sophistication to do that. We're not Aflac, right? And so what the standard is insisting directly there in the language is that firms take those principles, push them downstream, right? So if you are American Airlines in Dallas and you got 30,000 suppliers, the standard is looking for how are you influencing those suppliers and thinking about those. And it's really looking at systemic risk in the same way that we look at systemic risk in cybersecurity, right? How are your tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers even affecting your inclusivity? How is it affecting your ability to plan where you make investments in the near and far future from a supplier diversity standpoint? How are you developing that ecosystem if you're the biggest money spender in a region? So, yeah, from a metric standpoint, we've really grown out of HR into a comprehensive sort of process change management method to then deploy all those different types of diversity and then the many projects. We like to use the numbers 32, 27, and 4. There are 32 risk domains per D&I in the ISO standard. There are 27 different diversity categories. Not that if we interviewed 8 billion people, we wouldn't see 8 billion types of diversity, but these 27 types are the types that show up in HR or in legal dockets. And there's a big legal risk to D&I lawsuits or the threat thereof. And that last number 4 are really the type of projects that any company will normally deploy. So right now companies do training, they do data extraction, whether it's demographic or sentiment analysis. They do internal infrastructure like building employee resource groups, or they do external infrastructures like, oh, we joined the Latino Chamber of Commerce, or we're giving to the Girl Scouts. So you want to project manage those 4 projects across the 27 types in those 32 risk domains. And if you can do that well, maybe your EPLI, DNO, and E&O premiums don't go up next time you get sued by the Asian woman or the black woman who's probably going to sue you in the next 6 months. It's going to happen. So insurance is the real driver, because every time a suit happens, and there's $5 billion alone in this country every single year, that's a claim. That's an EPLI, a DNO, or E&O claim. And so insurance is really going to be the incentive for not only corporate inclusivity, but really cultural inclusivity, I think, over the next few decades as younger people come on board and they want to belong, So we can financialize the incentive, I think, to get people on board. And I think I've overtalked at that point, so.